So, Steve, we have Leon and Andy, my two co-hosts tonight, and we are here to talk to you about not just this whole two-key custom, who you are and background, but we also want to talk about you just launched 7 different chapbooks last week. So thank you so much for coming to talk about that. I currently have 3 in my possession tonight.
Nice.
Hopefully we'll talk about a few more, and hopefully we'll be able to give, I have extra copies of those, so we hopefully can give some away tonight as well. So, so where did two keys custom start from? Like, where did this whole concept start from? And when you say the work week, and I promise you I'll shut up.
Oh, no.
I promise you I will. When this whole work week, is this what you consider work? Because this is what I believe my work is, but I'm not really. I'm a teacher in my real life. Yeah. So is this work for you?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not work. It would never be work. It's a labor of love. It's a side project, a hustle, you know, all those things that people call these things that they do. To me, it's a side thing, but it's, in a way, it's just something that keeps me motivated, keeps me sane, keeps me, you know, just doing things that I enjoy and staying with art, connecting with other people, like-minded people. So it's not work at all. I have a full-time job that takes up a lot of time because it requires me to be, you know, on, and it requires me to be attention to detail and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of, in a way, the same thing. I have to be on. I got to pay attention to detail. I'm dealing with people's words and art. But it's like a distraction, and it's a step away, and, you know, it gives me a chance to get away and free myself from that other stuff.
Because
so it's like a zen for you, basically, right? It's like a zen, right? It's like zen time. Here it is.
That's what I want it to be. Sometimes it gets, you know, a little more hectic depending on a person. You know, sometimes the people I work with, a lot of times I reach out and say, hey, I like what you're doing. Let's connect. Sometimes, recently, I guess because it's taken off a little bit more than it was a year ago, I'm getting people coming to me, and some people I'm aware of, and I know from Instagram. Some people I have no idea. They don't even have an Instagram, or they may not have social media. So it's kind of, you know, connecting, talking, and feeling them out, having them send me their thing, and, you know, kind of working from there. So yeah, it's a zen. It will always be, because it's art and it's creative, and it's you know, fun in that way, because I get to, you know, have a peek into someone else's lives. They're trusting me with their work, so, you know, I get to be creative in that way. But it's also, you know, in a way, it is a job in a sense, because someone is relying on me to do good with their work. So, you know, depending on someone's perspective, you know, a lot of times, and maybe I'm getting far ahead of the initial start of this conversation, but you know, sometimes
definitely not.
And maybe you guys see it too. People reach out because they see something cool and they want you to do it for them, but they may not have any idea of, you know, necessarily what you do. They just know that you put up a bunch of things that look cool, and maybe there's a little bit of commotion and people are excited about what you're doing, so now they want to get involved, and that kind of creates a weird balance. A weird balance and stuff.
So it's interesting because, like what you said, you said, I know you were talking about and I wanted to ask you, how important is that detail? Because you were talking about how they see something cool and it's nice and everything, and the reason why I say that is because I think my main thing was always, okay, people do it because it's cool, but are you doing it because it's just to be a part of the what's the word? Like you want to just be a part of the coolness behind it, or is it because you really love to do? Not you, but I'm talking like other people who want to join in on what you're doing, and you talk about detail. So, and what I got out of what you're saying is it's also a responsibility for you to make sure that the detail was so according to what the writer wants for that. For the work that you're doing for them. So my question is, how important is that detail, and how important is that responsibility for you?
To me, there's only a couple things that there's a lot that I strive to do. But when I'm doing a drop, and a lot of times up until this most recent April one, I've kind of done between 1 to 3 at once. And that was, 1 to 3 per month. This year I'm doing every other month. And I allowed myself, which is kind of crazy, to do 7 all at once. But what I strive to do is I take, whether I know the person, I don't know the person, whether that person has, a big base of however many followers on Instagram or Facebook or, whatever it is, or they have very little, or I have no idea because I don't have a social media. I take each person and I kind of just like ignore all of that. And it's just like, it's just them and I.
Okay.
I take their work, and some stuff comes to me pretty much ready to go. And I put it in my own way and I tweak it into my format for printing. But others, they ask for a little bit of critique. They ask for a proofreading. And then I take it, that way. But it's really, I take each one as it comes, and every one of them I treat different, but the same. You know what I mean? I want my process and my thought of what I release is I want every release to be unique in itself, because every artist coming to me is unique. Every one of their works is its own unique thing. But I also, under my 2Key umbrella, I want everything to look and feel as its own thing, but also feel like it's part of this 2Key family in a sense. And maybe
Speaking of,
right.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 2Key family, it sounds like here we have Von Ross. He had talked about earlier. Steve, you says here that you're excellent at what you do. Real pleasure to work with. Also, we have another comment here. I just want to bring to everybody's attention. Steve Zmijewski.
Close. That's usual. It's
Zmijewski.
Yeah, you're close.
I knew a Jewski before, like a different.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I try. Anyway, it's the type of guy who does good work because you believe in it.
Exactly.
You want to talk more about that kind of, because again, you kind of have like, we've had interviewers in the past talk about like the DIY aspect. It never dies, and that it's kind of like the quality that you get. It kind of has that kind of aesthetic,
Yeah.
Like you said, each one's kind of unique, but also part of the same family. So again, I have 3 from the 7 collection that we'll go through. I know we want to talk about all the artists that came out, but talk about the 2Key family and all that whole situation there with the DIY aspect.
Sure.
And the believing in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna because really this is a side hustle. I'm not making tons and tons of money for. Basically what I'm doing is I'm putting these out with and for these artists and writers and poets and whatever, and I'm just hoping to make enough back to get to the next one. So it's not like I'm doing this because it's like I just want to release anything and everything because I'm making money, and it's just like, let's keep this train rolling because I'm making a profit off of this. It's more of, it's a heartfelt, homemade thing. So I'm not going to accept someone's work if I don't believe in it. If it doesn't, I mean, I'm not gonna love every poem in every single book I put out because that's almost impossible. But I want to at least feel the heart of it and believe in it. And also I want to mesh with that person's overall, their overall vibe. I hate
aesthetics.
Aesthetic, their belief. Put someone out that their beliefs, and I'm not putting something out that's going to be racist, homophobic, any of that kind of, like, that has no part in my world. So that's a big one, and that's part of the family. So I have to believe in what you do, and I have to, I'm not wasting my time, my ink, my paper, my pride on this if I don't believe in it. So that's number one. And I think I answered part of it, but there was more I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Yeah.
I had to ask you, what's the inspiration behind the name Key Customs?
Oh, yeah, right.
What inspired you?
I'm seeing all the names. That's good. Clay, hi, dude. Tom, I'm going to fight that guy because he's, but I support him. I bet for stuff, guys never sent me anything, even though we're good buddies. But
we make sure that's known to everybody out there.
We
won't miss it.
And I think
that's a great question, Leon. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, and I think
was wondering where did it come from.
Sorry, I think you started asking in the beginning, and then we kind of rambled and went full force into the conversation. But so the name itself, and then 2Key Customs, the idea of it started in 2014. my wife and I, we were engaged, planning for our wedding, and we are both creative in a sense, and also don't have tons and tons of money to throw at different vendors and all that kind of stuff. So we did a lot of the work, decorative stuff for our wedding ourselves. I've always been creative, like digital wise, like I can make flyers and invitations, all that kind of stuff.
I've been to the store. You got some artwork out there too.
Yeah, little watercolor drawings that turn into this easy to do designs. So yeah, basically, long story short, it was around our wedding time in 2014. We started doing stuff for the wedding, loved it, had a great time. We were like, well, there's something here. Maybe we could, take this moment and now do this for others. And at the time, it was basically friends, family. Like, we're not in a position to become, a home business, but friends and family have asked us since then to do invitations for their kids' parties, their showers, and that kind of thing. And then fast forward a bunch of years, in the start of COVID quarantine here in New Jersey.
Jersey over here.
That's right.
Yeah, me too. But
where are you in Jersey?
Yeah, I'm now, but I'm originally a Jersey boy. Warren County, Morristown, Hackettstown,
nice. Cool.
All my.
Yeah, no. So I'm originally from New York, but I live in Bayonne. So I live like before you hit Staten Island, if that makes sense. The Bayonne Bridge goes literally 5 minutes into Staten Island. But I'm originally from New York, but I like where I live. So
and Steve, you're not gonna believe this. I am not from New Jersey at all.
No.
But I just visited New Jersey when I met Andy when we just started the podcast. So
cool.
I recently visited your state. So cool. I think you guys suck at driving because you don't know how to turn left. They never taught you how to turn left.
We can do it when we want to.
That's tri-state area crap, unfortunately. Yeah.
I'm not gonna throw it out. I got nothing to say.
She said pizza with pizza.
That's not what we're here
I don't know.
to talk about. We're here to talk about the release. So you said 7. Now 7's a lot. You said normally when you guys do releases you go like 3 at a time, but 7, you put out 7 this time. What was the rationale to do 7? Although you were talking about the COVID time, maybe we can go back to that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll go quick. I'll move through.
No. You tell the story as is. I want to know everything.
So start of quarantine here in Jersey. It was early March, March 13th, I believe. No one knew exactly what to expect or what it's going to be. And one of my buddies from Belmar, who's also on Instagram, Glenn Binger, Bing Bang Co. He is also a writer, publisher, poet. He wrote a bunch of novels, has a bunch of zines and chapbooks out. He reached out and was like, hey, let's connect and do something together during this quarantine time. I'll send you some stuff, you send me some stuff, and let's make let's collab. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I was nervous at the time because that's a couple years ago. I was still early in my my own personal, not early on in writing, but early on in like doing something in a setting like being on Instagram and trying to self-publish or publish. And like, to me, it was just all in my own home. So he asked me and I was like, all right, yeah, let's do it. And I was a little nervous, but then I was like, you know what? This is cool. He has a bigger audience. I appreciate him. I appreciate what he does. I respect him as a writer, artist, but also as a friend. So I was like, I'm going to take this moment and I'm going to turn this into something bigger. He asked me, but I'm going to now tell him to send me his stuff, and I'm going to do the book. I'm going to do the work, put it under 2 Key Customs, and now I'm going to have my own. Oh, sorry, my light turned off. I'm going to have we're going to start my press, and from there, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to reach out to a couple of the people I know that are artists, writers, but whatever. And that's kind of where it went from mid 2020. So I think May 2020 was the first release. And then I think later on in the fall, we did another 1 or 2. And then it just went into 2021. We did a bunch. And then 22 was big. I did at least 1 release per month for the whole year. And most months ended up having 2 or 3. And then here we are now in 2023. And I did 2 in February, and we just did 7 in April. So to get to your question about why 7, at the end of 2022, I was on a steady path of doing 2 to 3 books a month. I didn't want to get in too far over my head and not be able to give each thing justice. So I wanted to keep that pace, but I was also getting responses from people that I reached out to earlier, and they were like, "Oh, I have something," and then other people were messaging me and saying, "Hey, can you read my manuscript?" And I wasn't going to turn people away. I'm going to read it, and if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, and we'll approach that as it comes. But I wasn't turning anything away. I was hungry. I wanted to do it. I was enjoying it. So at the end of 2022, I had a bunch that I didn't even get to. So I wanted to take a break at the start of this year so I could focus on my own stuff, because I've been neglecting myself, my own art, my own writing, my own drawing, whatever, because I've been focused so much on everyone else's and so much on 2Key. So I was like, okay, let's take a break in 2023. I'll come back after the first quarter and we'll start nailing stuff out. But I couldn't stop. Like, I had so much. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do 2, get these 2 out of the way, because they were from the end of 2022. And then I was like, I have a huge chunk. I'm just going to do a big one in April. And that's what we did. I did 7. And it wasn't, it was hard. Everything's hard because it's time consuming. And I have a family. I have 3 kids. Again, like I said before, I'm juggling work. I'm doing this. So it's hard to carve in that space. But I wait till the kids go to bed. I wait till I put the kids to sleep. The wife falls asleep on the couch watching Bravo or whatever. And then I jump in and start doing
All right.
it. And that's it. That's the story.
That's great.
Wow. Did you have any questions, Leon, that you wanted to ask?
Well, I just want to say that your dedicated work ethic is commendable. Because it feels like, where did you find the time? Because the way you were able to release everything, it feels like it was breakneck speed. Of course, I know it was very time consuming, but I was like, there's 24 hours in a day you able to do all of it like that. Such a rapid pace and so efficient too, because you didn't just spit it out, whatever, just throw caution to the wind. No, you did it with efficiency as well.
I don't know. I don't know. That's just, I guess, how I approach a lot of things. I'm hard on myself, and sometimes, and I think this is also helpful to me, because there's times when I'm like, as a writer or as an artist, you want to set time aside to focus on your own thing. But when you try to be so regimented, and it's like, I'm going to wake up at this time and I'm going to put in an hour to write, it's those times when you're forcing yourself, so nothing's going to come out. So it's like, when those times arise and I can't sit in front of the computer to focus on myself because I'm either, too much in my own head, or the kids are getting me crazy, it's easier for me to open up someone else's documents and be like, okay, and read this, and I could focus on that, because it's not myself. So it's my process is early morning, late night, sleep a little bit in the middle, and then you just wake up and I do it again. Sometimes I'm able to kind of do it in the middle of the day as I'm supposed to be working. If it's like where I want to take 15 minutes to do something and then jump back to work, take another 10 here, I kind of piece it together, and it's been working.
I gotta say, Steve, you really have a really good altruistic side, because we're getting a lot of information in the chat about your own personal work, especially your watercolors. They're really just blasting pretty hard about how great they are. Bobby Beatnick 213 said Steve's watercolors are so cool, and they are a bright spot in the bleak and gray winter time. Also following up that he also says that even when you fail to deliver a manuscript, he doesn't give up on you and continues to support and encourage you as a writer. So it seems like you're really, really kind of pulling art from your community, from the people that you really have that 2Key family connection with.
I try. Bobby,
people are also wanting to see some of the work too.
But it's all about that lasting impact, and it's that trust that you have built with the people that trust you to do the manuscript, to get the thing done. And it's that lasting relationship that you've built, and I think that's amazing to have that. It's like I said before, that's a responsibility that you take very seriously. And just like Leon said, that is awesome. And I think that's awesome that you do that, because just to get your book published, let's say in any place, let's say this doesn't exist, it's hard. And one thing I've learned, because I've had two guests that were publishers, and one thing they had in common is like sometimes you don't even have control of what you want to put out there. They pick and choose what they think, oh, you should do, and it becomes a battle. So I think the fact that you're allowing that freedom, okay, hey, let's work something out, let's make it good. And it's like what Bobby Beatnick said, you know, like even if people deliver a manuscript, you don't give up on that person. And it's like we need a lot of that. That's awesome. I applaud you for that one.
And real quick, that side that's not the driving force of the reason why I started 2Key, but now that I've been doing it, that is one thing that is important to me, and I'm glad that you elaborated on that a little bit, because it is important. Because as as an artist, as a writer that has submitted to places, I don't necessarily think that everything that someone is going to submit to, whether it's a manuscript to a publisher, or a poem or two to an anthology or some kind of a collection that's going to feature a bunch of writers, I don't expect really to ever get the note back saying, yeah, you're accepted. But when you do get that, it's awesome. Yeah. But it's very, very small. It doesn't happen often. Some people it may happen more than others, but it doesn't happen often, and it gets discouraging. And my goal is to not be that, like you said, like the publishers themselves aren't choosing this. Sometimes they're not choosing what they like or don't like. They're just maybe picking because they don't think someone's going to sell, or this person doesn't have enough followers. Like there's a number of factors. Also, sometimes the work may not be good enough, and that's totally fair, and that's fine. But I want it to be, and I'll always want to be that person that gives the new, fresh people a start. The people like myself that have been writing for a long time, but has always been scared, scared to do something. Because we all deserve a shot, and I think I've done more debut chapbooks over the last couple years than I've done for bigger writers, and that's totally fine. Like it's not making me more money, which is totally fine because it's not a money. But at the end of the day, I feel better releasing someone's debut chapbook and it selling a handful of copies. That means more to me than me getting a writer that has put out 1,000 chapbooks and it's like, hey, can you do this because I've seen you do this for other people, and why not just do mine too? So giving people a home, it feels right, and everyone needs a shot, and who knows what's going to happen from there. Once they have this one in the door, they get their confidence, and now they're like, oh well, now I feel good, I'm going to submit to 20 places, I'm going to submit a new manuscript full of poems to this person. And I think myself, there's a couple in New Jersey, that guy Tom that was in the chat, he's prolific, he gets accepted and he submits, and his poems are everywhere, but he's great. But he also runs a press, Between Shadows, who I think are similar in a way, in a like a theory and a stance as to what I'm doing. We started around the same time. He's put out a ton, but it's similar. It's like we know what we like, we know what we don't like, but we want to give people a voice, and because people deserve it. Who are we to say that your art is bad?
That is wow. That is amazing.
So throughout this whole history, what was maybe one of the projects that either was like the most rewarding for you because maybe you had a lot of adversity, or maybe it was an artist that you really pulled something from? Like, do you have any projects that were like, damn, that was a really fucking good one that we did there?
Yeah, that's hard. I
know they're all the same. Yeah, I know they're all like that. But.
Get out of my head, Angela, because I was going to ask that question.
Well,
Get out of my head.
I brought it out of your head.
I have a few of these left, but I have one of my great friends, and I'm not sure if she's on, is this girl named Maureen. We worked together at a restaurant for many years ago. We went on writing dates after our terrible shifts. We came out of work smelling like food and garbage, and we would go to the nearby bar. We would sit at the bar, have a couple drinks, and we would share each other our poems. And that was long before I had any thought in my head about this and any of this. But we were there for each other. We bounced ideas off each other. We critiqued each other, and we continued talking about poetry and art and stuff. And then when I started this, I immediately was like, she was the first person I talked to. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm starting this. I have these 2 things I'm going to do first. But before the middle of next year, this is in 2020, I said, before mid-2021, you are sending me some of your poems, and we're putting together a book. And we did. So that was one of the most rewarding ones.
That makes sense, for sure.
Yeah, that felt great because it's a friend. Another friend of mine who is not really a writer in a sense of like he submitting places and publishing, but he's a creative guy. He's one of my best friends in my entire life. His name is Pete. He found his father passed around I guess it's a couple years, 2 years at this point. His father passed, so he was going through the garage, cleaning out some stuff, and came across a box that his mom and his parents, yeah, and it had a school project in it, written poems from when he was in high school, and now he's like, he's almost 40. So he was like, oh, I bet Steve will be into this. So I immediately was like, send it to me, and I didn't even care how maybe childish or how how young it was, but I read it and I was like,
poetry, it's high school poetry.
Yeah, I was like, this is cool. Like these are there's a handful in there that I was like, these are legit poems. So I was like, I'm gonna do a book. If you want, I'll make a book out of this. So I did that for him. I still have some of those. They're in the shop. That was rewarding. And then fast forward a bunch of, I mean, they're all rewarding to me. But my February drop, I did 2 books in February. They're both sold out. But one was for Sam. It was called, I should have all this memorized, but off the top of my head, it's Self-Diagnosis. I don't know why I forget. Self-Diagnosis by Sam Rubenstein. And then I did another one by this guy, Munsif Usamani. And it's called Honey, I Meant to Shrink. They both, like I said, are sold out. But they were sent to me around the same time. I met Sam out at a reading maybe once or twice. I met Munsif out at a reading once. I don't know if they know each other. Maybe they do now. But they both sent me a manuscript together around the same time. And they were both not the same, very different styles, but they were both, in a way, centered around, like anxiety and like self-help in a way, but also like looking at yourself in the crazy world that we live in and kind of figuring out where you fit and how, survival. They were just 2 beautiful pieces, very different. But I was so happy with them. And I usually provide a handful of copies to each writer, and then I put some up in the shop so I could, recoup some money and then go to the next one. But these 2 guys also bought additional copies so they could go to their own poetry readings and sell them. And they've sold theirs and they've come back and asked for some more. So they've been selling, and I'm happy about it because it's not just, and nothing I do is really just poetry or just a short story. They all have to have meat to it. But these 2, because they've been, they're a couple of the more recent ones, it's just top of mind. But these 2 I felt like had a lot of heart and a lot of importance to it for people, for people of all shapes, colors, sizes, in all walks of life. So I was very happy that they came to me with these 2 specifically, and that they've been moving and selling and getting out into people's hands, because it's it's important work, important thoughts, I think.
Absolutely.
Now, you talked a lot about live mic. Is that something that you do often? Is that something that they do often? Is that something, or just like just the way of the past?
It's done often, especially I'm sure you guys have seen it. There's a lot going on in New Jersey. There's a lot of shows, open mics on almost on a regular basis. I'm freaking scared about reading in public. I've done it a couple of times, but I'm not.
That's in my bucket list, by the way.
It's good. It's good to do. It's a good exercise. It's good for your soul, and maybe it helps. I don't know. But I'm not a public. I don't like to be in front and center. I'm not a public guy like that. I also think my work, my own personal work, is more intimate. Like you read it in your house. on a couch in your bed, whatever.
Understood. Yeah.
I'm not a performer. It's not meant to be performed, but I've done it, and I just rush through the words. I don't give it the proper, I don't give it the justice it deserves. But Sam, Munsif, there's Cord, even Tom. There's a guy, Damien, in Egypt. They're all performers. They know how to write for the page, but they also can perform. And if you can do that, I think it's amazing. It's not me. Maybe eventually.
I just did my first one in Nashville. I just did my
All
first
right,
one in Nashville.
Leon, you had a question, Leon, or?
I did have a question. One was more of me to say about the performance. Like me as an artist, I would say I'm both. Yeah. I can be front and center and spoken word and lively, or then I can also be behind the scenes. But yeah, there's something about performing live. It's for me personally, because I've not only done spoken poetry, but I've done motivational speaking. I was a disability is speaking in front of hundreds of people. So yeah, but I know it's not for everybody. But going on to my question, I was going to ask to you, what is the process of somebody wanting to submit their work to you? Like, what would they have to go through to submit their work to you?
Like what resources and stuff you mean, right? Like what resources you use to? Okay.
Yeah. They gotta jump through a lot of hoops to get to me. No, I'm just kidding. Keep it very, very simple. I have my own personal Instagram page, Catch Steve Z, but then there's the 2Key page, so 2Key Customs. And I started my own personal page first, and then a 2Key page came second, because at the time, I didn't know this 2Key thing was going to become a thing. So basically, they can message me on either one of those accounts, DM. We could chat through there. I have a website. It's catchstevez.com. But on that website, I have a page specific to the 2Key stuff. So they can go to my site and then send me an email through that, or just email catchstevez@gmail. And that's really it. Like, just message me. We can have a little small chat. And it's easy. I'm open. Like I said before, I'm open to hearing and reading what you got. And in most cases, as long as what I said before, it's not hateful, it's not, slanted the wrong way. I don't want to hear any hate shit towards any kind of person,
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff. And as long as it's not that, I'm open. And you send it to me, and if it connects, it connects. To be completely honest, I've only, in the course of the, 2-3 years, I've only turned down less than 5 manuscripts.
Oh wow!
I don't want to turn anything back. A few just, they just didn't fit. They weren't for me. But also, I think before we first started talking about doing this live, you shot a couple questions about, like, let's talk about what a chapbook is, or what. So to me, that's a bigger answer, a bigger discussion. But what I try to do is I don't think a chapbook should be 40, really much more than 30 pages. It should be a smaller, concise work. So there's times that someone submitted something or want me to work with something that was like 40, 50, 60 pages. And that just doesn't, it's too much. It won't look right when you fold it and it's just going to be a mess. But it's just also too big. So that's one of the main reasons why the second reason, I guess, why I would turn someone away is if the work is just too big and I can't really do justice to it. But other than that, I'm open. You send it to me, and we'll figure it out.
That's
awesome.
There's so many.
What is the minimum? Like, what's the minimum requirement as far as pay? Because you talk about the pages, and I always found that very fascinating. Because I know there's these requirements as to, okay, how many pages a book should be depending on the genre, and then you were talking about the chapbook. What's the maximum it should be, and what is the minimum that it should be as far as how many pages in the book?
I can't speak about others, because there's other small press people, small press that are doing similar, and they may work, like, I do everything myself. So like I do the printing, I do the folding, I do the stapling, I do this, to start at the beginning, I do the setup and whatever, all the way down the line. So I'm printing, stapling, and folding, all that shit myself. Some presses take the work, they set it up in whichever format for a printer, and then a printer prints it. So in that sense, those type of presses could probably do thicker because they're not going to have staple binding. They're going to probably have that perfect bound, the nice book binding.
Okay.
More, but for me and for what I do, I don't think there's a minimum. Obviously, it's got to be at least 4 pages so you could have, but I would like to see, at least like 3 or so folded pages is good. But there's no minimum to me. And the maximum, like I said, I've done something that was about probably a little bit more than 40 total pages. I've done like 1 or 2, but that's like the maximum. I try to stick within like the 20 to like 34-ish area because that's a lot of work. Because in theory, like a chapbook is supposed to be. I mean, maybe I don't want to say it's supposed to be because I'm not an expert. I'm not.
But for you, for your
idea.
Yeah.
But for me, it should be an easy, concise read because if you want to read something, you're gonna go out and buy a book, and people's reading habits are different. So, but I think like a chapbook should be, you could sit down with it and read it within a short period of time, and go back to it again and read it again and again and again if you want. But it should be like a concise, not necessarily a themed, but it shouldn't be like 10 poems of like completely random shit. It should be kind of like a concise, organized
from start to finish. It's almost like I almost want to compare to like plays, almost like when you read a play of this size, you're gonna get a feeling just like as you walk through, like and you definitely get that, at least from the quality and everything you spoke on from the ones that I have in my possession. You definitely have exactly what you said.
So, question. So, Angela, since we were talking about the chapbook, so you mind giving us a preview of what to expect from the most recently the recently released chapbooks? Like give us an example of what to expect so people can, buy them and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, I purchased 3 from the 7 release. Obviously, I had to get Arthur Wilhelm's because he's been on our show twice now. Honestly, the last poem in here really talks about your whole experience. I don't want to get into it right now, but again, the whole bleeding like fingers, and again, like how many books are you copying? Like as a teacher, I and the stapler's out, and you've made 100 packets. I'm fucking stapling all 100 packets. I don't give a shit. But like again, like each one has like its own unique kind of like theme. This one's pretty cool. Like it's got its own like red kind of image and like. How did you come up with this kind of? This is what you said to him, or did you guys come up with that together?
Wow, that is amazing! Wow,
that idea was me. He usually I don't know. I don't want to say usually. I have designed most of the covers, but I'm not stuck on needing to do the covers for every release I do. I actually, because it saves me some time. I appreciate if a writer. Any of the artists come to me with like a photo or a design. In that case, I think Arthur found, like the cigarette box image online, and then he put the text in there. I redid it because he sent it to me and it was a little fuzzy, so like I kind of tweaked it to fix it. But then I took his image, and then that inside image, I took the image and I wanted to have some kind of a cool little layout inside. So I took it and I put all that shit together.
That's pretty cool. And again, you had to lay that out. You had to figure out how it would look cool with where it's going to be stapled. And another one here, and again, we will go through the actual poetry, I think, when we hit towards that open mic piece. But we have another one here. I have Sour Grapes from David Estringo. This one's kind of cool, too, because we have, like, actually, like, a photo, like, almost like, it's like, I don't want to say Mod Podge on, but, like, that kind of, like, unique kind of it's really, I really like how it's tactile it is because it's kind of smooth.
Thank you.
Did you come up with this too? Or
for that one, I asked him because sour grapes, I feel that you could do. I mean, naturally, you think sour grapes. You think, oh, I'm going to put some freaking grapes on the cover. So I asked him before I got too far into designing or thinking of something. I asked him, do you have a photo? Do you have a design? Do you have an idea? And he was like, oh, I found this online, and he found it off of, I guess, Free Pick, or so it was like a free to use image. But I always feel weird about just taking, and even if it's free, there's no kind of license, there's no any of that weird shit. But I always feel weird about it, and that's why I did the cut, because I was like, well, I'm not going to use it just a or image. Let's just cut it and kind of put it on the thing. Yeah, but he sent me that image, and then I took it upon myself to cut it and then do the actual printing part on the paper. That was me.
That's really cool.
Talk to me about the material, because that was interesting about Chapbook. Again, I know nothing about Chapbooks. I've seen it, don't know much about it, but
Andy, can I read this? Because it explicitly says right here what they're made of. I want to make sure.
Oh, okay. There you go. You answered the question.
Oh, actually, it's yeah. Hold on, I want to make sure because it's in every one. Hold on. Of course I can't find it right on cue, but I know exactly where it is.
Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law.
You because you know what it says because it says it in every one. It's just like it's made. What it was made from? It's made from like cardstock. Oh no, maybe it's online where it says that cardstock something in love.
Yeah, that's in the Etsy shop. The listing when you create
the book.
Oh yeah, no.
It says
in the listing
homemade and handmade always heartfelt.
Yeah, that's kind of like my tagline. Just because I think that's one thing that may set me apart is that it is homemade, handmade. My hand and my, it's on every one of them. But
there's one more that I want to show off too, because this one's totally different. This one has some photography as well. Is this one from our author? This is from Mark Palafrone or Palafrone?
Yeah, I think one of his close friends did a photography. In the inside cover. It might list the guy's name, and he sent me a couple of his photos that he wanted to use. So I love that. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, cover and photos featured within by Sean McLaughlin. McLaughlin. Because there's some photo. When people who get these, they're going to get some quality photos as well. So you had to somebody else's photography and also figure out where it would match as far as layout wise and so how is that? Is that difficult to do, or this seems pretty spectacular? You put it right there in the center and kind of bridging to
that's a good question.
Start of the chapbook to the end. Kind of is that where you felt like that was where it's best served, or did the author come up with that idea?
No, it was me.
Well, you're the layout guy.
I don't like being like, that's me, because it's a group thing. I always take the idea or think of an idea and I bounce it off of them just to make sure it was cool. But there's sometimes where I'm just going to take it and run with it. But he sent me the photos, and it was, I kind of was just like, well, what am I going to piece them in it? And I thought for that exactly, because of how nice the image was, I didn't want to, and it was more of a horizontal image. I didn't want to put it vertical. I figured as a centerfold, it would be pretty cool. So it's not, it's not cut up. So for that, I used a different paper for that photo page than for the interior where the poems are. So that's kind of another thing that I do when necessary, when it calls for, is if I use art or photos, I try to play with the textures, and the covers are cardstock. The interior is a nice, smooth feeling paper where the poems are printed. But then if I'm using photos or art, and I print it on I sometimes try to print it on a separate paper that may have a little more gloss or a little more of a photo feel, just so as you're flipping through, you could feel it.
The teacher, like the office nerd in me, is like, oh my gosh, let's talk about the types of cardstock you're using.
Yeah,
I love it. What's the quality? What's the grade?
Yeah.
How
what's
many
the
reams per? Yeah. Right. Where can I get it? How can I get my work to order it so I can just get it out of the closet? Yep. I didn't say that.
Talking about 9:45 on a Friday, talking about paperweight.
I know, right?
Hey, I'm a stationery guy. I love stationery.
I love office supplies. Yeah. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
I just highlighted 3, but I know there were 4 other ones.
Yes.
Were there any other covers that you had? Like, I know you probably have them all right to your disposal that we could show up as well.
Oh yeah, I brought them.
I know that because again, like he said, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with Steve at 2 Key Customs, and he's one of the many, but one of the ones that has published one of our guests that we've had, and some other ones. Does the small press chapbook. Just had 7 releases just recently last week. Actually, 4/10 is when they dropped the 7. But and if you wanted to look into potentially getting hooked up with Steve, he had dropped his personal and his regular at 2 Key Customs. So again, It's all about that unique, because everyone that I've seen is unique, but then again, you can definitely tell it's from you,
Yeah.
and it's from your crew, your quality. And again, you take care of every single one. You print them yourself, you staple them yourself, you cut them if you need to, and that's incredible.
That last one you were holding, the Dawn is Godless. To explain even more about how handmade it is. That one, was moving quick.
I saw it, like when I was like, I gotta get some extra ones. Like, oh my God, it's almost up. Gotta get that one. Gotta get that one.
Quick. And I had a stack on our dining room table because I was packing up the envelopes so I could go to the post office and mail them. I had a stack of those. I think a stack of maybe 9 or 10 that was to be packed. And last week when I was doing it, the kids were on spring break. My middle guy is a freaking maniac. He was up sitting at the table with his cup of orange juice, knocked his cup over, and it got on those books. And I, kind of stood them up so they could dry, but the page was like a little stained, it was crinkly, and I was like, can't send these to people. So last night I just printed off a bunch more. So a few orders are gonna, a few orders are delayed, but they're going out probably tomorrow or Monday.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's the homemade aspect of it. Sometimes it happens.
So it'd be coffee on mine for sure if I was.
There's
coffee on everything.
Coffee. It'll give it a nice smell.
Absolutely. So I know I asked earlier this question about opportunity, events that really were meaningful, and we talked about how you had a close friend from the restaurant industry that used to do poetry back and forth. That was a good one, and how these two collections were really good. But I'm going to ask you the opposite question. Have you ever had the opposite experience where either you did go all the way through and you're like, man, I'm glad that's over, or you never even made it to the printing press? It just didn't, lines got crossed.
Actually, that's good, because I know that happens a lot too from time to time. I'm just curious.
Sure you were very professional the entire time, and I'm sure it never even happened.
No, I don't have a lot of those stories, thankfully. I think just personality-wise, I try to, work with whoever it is as best as I can. There was never one where it just got shelved and I was like, well, I'm out. This isn't working for me. I can't deal with it. There was just one release so far, which the work was great. Everything was great. The person was, fine to talk to. But I think it was after I printed a bunch of them and I sent like a screenshot to this person as I was printing, like, hey, check out the interior. I'm up about it. It looks great. They were like, oh, that font doesn't look like the font of the manuscript I sent to you. And everyone sends a manuscript that's like Times New Roman or, Calibri or, whatever and I think the font.
Okay.
Not Arial, though. Not Arial.
No. Damn it, Angela. Damn it. Okay, what just happened? Okay, no, so I have a question for you, because you mentioned fonts, and I wasn't going to talk about this until you mentioned it, and the reason why I'm saying this is because Angela had a conversation with Stephanie Lamb Poetry, we just mentioned it. What is your opinion on fonts, Arial font? Bad, yay, nay, what's up?
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
But what matters is they care what font it was when you actually hit print, though, right?
That one specific person did. It was like, oh, the font that you use doesn't fit the feeling of what I'm writing, and I was like, oh, all right. I don't know. Whatever. So I reprinted a handful. I wasn't going to redo all the copies because that's just a waste. And some people don't even take notice of these things, of these little details. I do, and it bothered me that he wasn't happy. So of course I'm going to fix it and at least give him the copies that he's supposed to get. And then I made an additional on top of that for at least the people that were buying the first couple copies, because I figured those people were his friends, his family. Those are people who are going to get it the way that he intended it. So I fixed it, and there's no big deal. But yeah, font to me, I don't have one set one that I use. I think the standard, everyone assumes that it's going to be printed in Times New Roman. But I like to match, when I do a cover, sometimes I don't have like a process of, do I set up the interior first? Do I design the cover first? It's just kind of like whatever ends up happening that day is what happens. But I kind of like to match whatever fonts I'm using on the cover. Like if I have a title going some way and the author's name with a font, I try to then use that on the inside for either the poems itself or the title of the poems. So everything to me, it's like those little details. I need everything to kind of flow together. So whatever I do for the cover is on the inside, or whatever I'm doing on the inside, I then use for the cover. So, you know, it all depends. Yeah. I've used all sorts of fonts. It's just kind of whatever speaks to me in the moment. If the artist itself themselves doesn't have a preference, then I just, you know, whatever feels right, I just do it.
So kind of like whatever visually matches the aesthetic, kind of the vibe, the feeling that you got when you saw the collection, the manuscript together.
I read through the manuscript, and if, you know, obviously when you're reading poetry, especially, you're getting, you know, you're feeling a lot of things. You're visualizing things if it's written well. You're feeling things if it's written well. So as I read through once, if I go back and read the whole thing again, or a poem or two again, because those poems were like, wow, these are strong. I kind of based my thought of font from there, or I based an idea. If I wasn't given an idea or an image for a cover, I based the idea from the read-throughs. And, you know, if I get a thought that jumps out, it's like, okay, this visually, this is going to be the cover now, and you know, I try to make it work. Sometimes it doesn't, and I have to, you know, kind of regroup and then rethink myself, you know, the idea. But you know, that's kind of how it goes. However it speaks to me is what I do.
So I guess it does bring me to this question. Like, do you have any artists that end up being divas over things like font, or I don't like how you position? Can you center it a little bit more to the left? You know, things
just
like
that
or
one example that I was describing with the font. And there was a couple times where I sent a proof, and they were like, "Oh, can you?" There might have been one other time where someone wanted to like use it like tab over one more time than the one that I had, but those are all just like little things, and that's no big deal. But there's never really been a diva or a problem, you know, in a sense. It's all been kind of smooth sailing in a way.
You just gave me an idea for a shirt too. No diva, no problem. I like that. I don't know.
That's cool.
No problem. I don't know. I'm always coming up with something. I don't know. I just feel like I gotta come up with something.
You probably get an essence from like the work that you're reading and from your interaction that you're gonna get a good vibe off the individual anyway. So you probably wouldn't have even picked up the manuscript, so to speak, if you had any sort of inkling that that's not gonna work out. So
exactly.
So what's next? I mean, because you just dropped 7 releases. What's down the pipeline? I know you said like every couple of months you do a 3-piece kind of a thing, but like, are you thinking another big release again, or what?
I wasn't thinking 7 again, but what is this? This is April. April. So May is an off month because this year I'm doing every other, just to try to give myself a little extra breathing room, maybe an extra week in the middle that I can focus on myself, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah.
But so June is going to be another drop. It's usually mid-month. So mid-June will be the next drop. And I think I had maybe 4 ready to, but it may end up being between 4 to 6.
So your June drop has already been kind of decided, or can people still reach out to you to try and get into a June drop, or they gotta wait for like an August?
In most cases, it's if someone's going to reach out now, it will probably be August. But it is possible, but mostly it's going to be August.
Good. If Angela Murray brings you something just that good, we're going to see you in June.
If it's that good, we'll go May.
Oh yeah, you gotta throw yourself out there.
You'll work on your off month. Damn, I don't think I got anything that good. I would say time on your off time. I know how much precious time is, so I would never even ask that. Plus, goddamn it.
So I'm just curious. So I guess Mike, I have one last question. How long? Let's say one book in particular, right? Based on everything you've talked about. How long let's say a book was 10 pages. I'll just give you a random number. So how long is that one book take? Now, does it depend on what the material is and how the material looks that determines how the length of it? Like, what would one typically take you, one book?
That's a good question, and it depends. I guess it depends on the writer. And I think a lot of what I've released is poetry. I'm not dead set on only doing poetry. I've done a bunch of short stories.
Ooh,
I've done
okay.
one that was all visual. It was an illustrated book in a sense. So yeah, I don't want it to just to jump in here. I thought that was a good moment to mention it. It doesn't have to be poetry, but let's say a 10-page, whatever it is. It depends on the writer, because like I said earlier, some come to me and they've been doing this for a while, so their stuff is a little more polished. It's a little more print ready, and at that point, I'm taking what they sent, I'm reading it through, just double checking in most cases, making sure if there is punctuation, that the punctuation is there or not there. Making sure if they have a lot of times in poetry, you see the first letter of every letter as a capital. Sometimes people do that, sometimes they don't. But I notice a lot of times, if you're not paying attention, or if you edit your poem after the fact, some lines may have the caps, some don't. So like I kind of try to pay attention to those things. But if you're print ready, those are the minimal things, and that, then it's basically me setting up your poem in the format I use for printing, which could take a night or so, depending on my time. And then it's the cover. So really, it could be one ready to go, one basically essentially ready to go thing could take me a night or two to set up. Others, where if you're a little less polished or a little bit unsure, or want me to proofread or offer my thoughts, critique, whatever, then that would take a little bit longer. And I've done both, right? And I've done stuff that was like somewhere in the middle, where a poem in the whole collection may need a little bit of work, or they want me to focus on one, but the others are fine. But yeah, so if it's something that needs proofing and needs critique, that could take like a little more than a week. But I'll also, because I'm doing drops that include more than one, I'm sometimes starting one, getting to a certain point, and then jumping to the other and setting up that one interior wise, then setting up the third, maybe interior, and then I'm going back and I'm doing the covers, and then like you saw with the others where it has the photography as the layout, I'm then resizing those pages, and so like I'm kind of juggling each as I go. It's hard for me I try to do one, get it done, but I'm always going back to the ones that are finished to make sure that I like every detail is there, and make sure there was no typos on my end. I don't know. So to answer your question, I really have no idea. It could take a couple days. It could take a week or so. It could take whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, I'm sorry. I'm just flabbergasted because I love to learn stuff, and I think just like I was telling Angela, even like privately, the fact that we're doing this, podcasting community, we invite people we can tell. Like what you're right now, you're telling us a story, you're telling us what you do, and it's just so fascinating to even hear this. So thank you. First of all, thank you for saying yes to us.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Because
I know, because you get so many like these bots. Oh, promote on whatever, and it's all this other bot crap.
Yep.
But it's like, thank you for trusting us, and thank you for doing that. We've already reached towards like the very end of the first hour. But did you have a piece, maybe from the chapbook, that you would want to read to us before we transition into the open mic section, which is the second hour?
Yeah,
sure.
That's exactly what we're going to do. So also tonight, Steve, we're going to end things a little differently. So we're going to have you kind of close the interview portion by opening the open mic portion with your reading, and then Andy's going to have me stop the live because he's going to take the driver's seat for hour 2.
Perfect.
So thank you for ending and starting the next portion.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for having me. This is great. I'll come back at some point if you like.
Hell yeah!
This is a fun.
Hell yeah, definitely.
That'll be awesome.
I'm nervous to do these kind of things and talk, and I don't ever really know what I should say or want to say. It kind of comes out as I go, based on my, it comes from the heart. But this was fun. This is an easy conversation, and it's enjoyable. And hopefully, I see the number. Hopefully, people enjoyed it as well.
Well, tell all your buddies who are in the industry that you publish that you're like, hey, this is so great that, hey, we want to interview.
And the good thing is, even after we, and the good thing about what we're doing here is the fact that even with the live, it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, Amazon, and Audible, which to me that's like awesome, and I was able to get it on there, so that's forever. So again, it's an honor and a privilege to want to do this, just like how you feel the same way. Like it's an honor and a privilege for you to do what you want to do because you want to do that, you want to give back and just to pretty much be of service. Same thing with me. That's why I decided to come back last year. Last year, this year. Was it this year, Angela? I'm sorry, I'm confusing the years. But that's why I decided to do that. And this is technically our 5th season now, which is like, I'm just happy. So thank you again to be a part of this journey with us.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
So what do you got for us tonight to read?
All right.
I'm dying to hear this.
Oh, Jesus. I'll read. I was thinking I'll read something of someone else's from a release, but I'll read one of my own. It probably feels more natural. So this came out later on last year. I'm in release. Oh, actually, early last year, I guess. I'm at release 40 something now. This was 14. So it's a little earlier, but it's a split between myself and a guy, Patrick Moore, who's on Instagram. He's a pretty great writer. Again, he's another guy that has done big books, big poetry collections, but also supports the little guy. And he sent me a bunch of solid poems. Yes, so I'll read this one. And it's, I don't know, it kind of talks similar to the end of the last Arthur poem. How it like kind of goes into.
Or Harry, should we partner? Should we read them together? After you read this?
Yeah,
Should I read mine first and then you read that one?
Sure.
All right. Because again, this just matches everything you said, especially being that small press. So, in Arthur's book, again, we'll have somebody from the open mic. We'll have them win, but this one's from and he, because I want to say something after this because this is kind of why we reached out to you, but. This is called Breathing with an Iron Lung by Arthur J. Wilhelm. I guess I cared more when the mail didn't stop and the basement smelled like ink and warm paper. I guess I cared more when I was ignorant to the fact that vested interest wasn't interest at all. When I was a name, but not my name. When I was just another drunk putting words and it didn't matter if I was going through it. I guess I cared more when I thought people cared about more than making a name and shouting, "Look at me," from the rooftops. I guess I cared more when I was hunched over with bleeding fingertips from punching holes until 3 a.m. with a sweating glass and half-smoked cigarette. When I was naive to think that anyone cared at all. I guess I cared more when people were more like people and less like leeches trying to suck me dry. There will be no mourning for those nights, and I'm sure as shit don't miss the entitlement that it brought, but I do miss when I thought it mattered, but it didn't, and I didn't. Nobody gave fuck all when it died, and I don't give fuck all now. Print it. Yeah. And he talked about it on the first interview, which actually was my first actual live interview ever. And he talked about just how he was happy that he didn't do it anymore, but at the same time, he wished he still did. So you have a companion piece for this.
Yeah, not necessarily a companion, but it kind of goes to, me doing what I do, but also, whatever. I'll just read it. It's called TV Plays the Sound of Distant Explosions. Right? Armed with jets, mounted artillery, warships, and tanks, I'm hunched over a small square crafting table equipped with pen, papers, and stapler. My knees are dry. I'm folding pages into books. All our protest songs and pretty hearts are mostly true. Can I call you tonight? I will call you some names. Call to tell you something. I need you to listen. I would call just to hear your sleepy breathing. Do the lions reach where you are? Might be you just finished cooking. It could be you just settled in with the shake of fear. Well, I miss you. Something like a treehouse, like an olden shelter crumbling on the brink of cataclysm. TV plays the sound of distant explosions. A candle on the mantle flickers. That's it.
Wow.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know what you mean you can't read like out in front of people.
That was
great. Yeah,
wow.
I see you in front of a crowd of people sitting in a Barnes and Noble, maybe. I don't know. Maybe a stage somewhere. Yeah. So, you want to talk about your feeling from that? Like, definitely, I know, Andy, I felt like you definitely had a reaction for sure.
I'm speechless. Like,
Thank you.
I just love to listen, honestly. Wow, again, this is an honor and a privilege. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a that's a really cool reaction. I don't know. It was written in one moment because of I was literally sitting in our living room we have a little kid table in the middle of our living room that they eat at, they draw at, they do their homework at, whatever. But one night, I was putting together books, to be released, folding, stapling, like I say, and I had the news on, and it was, I guess, I don't remember the month, but it was some crazy shit was happening on the news. I think maybe it was the beginning of the Ukraine stuff.
Mm,
All that, and I'm sitting there folding this and hearing all, like, the news, these people, figureheads speaking about this, and it's, a lot of stuff is just built on top, and then this is happening, and I'm just sitting there putting the books together, and it's like, what is the point of all this shit when this is happening? Like, whatever. And just thinking about people, friends, also thinking like the person that I would wanted to, I'm not going to make up your own thought or about what it's about, but just thinking about people and, maybe friends that you haven't spoken to wanting to call, or even let's say your family is over there and you wanting to call your family, but you can't because there's bombs being dropped in their fucking neighborhood. So, it's that kind of thing. I tend to be very focused on, like, I don't know. I'm always focused on my own thoughts and relationships and feelings. But the world around you always trickles into what you're doing, because that's, we live life. And that's kind of what that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that, because you can live your own experience, because the outside world technically can't affect your daily, but at the same time, the outside world affects your mind and everything daily.
Yeah.
I try to live within the either like above or below the plane, just try to get through the day.
Yep.
I hear that, especially 1,000%.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess this is where I have to say again, thank you so much for doing the interviewing portion with us.
Yes.
And we're definitely going to have you back on. Definitely chatting with you. We'll give you that time off, but when the new drop comes out in June, we'd definitely like to have you on early.
Yes, let's do a part 2, please. That'll be awesome.
Absolutely. So,